So tell me
Actually.
what was weird about Antarctica?
There's nothing there. So if you want to go see the emperor penguins or all of the wildlife that is available, you can't go to the interior of Antarctica, which is where we were. We were at a...
wow. Jeez.
So I thought that this was going to be the coolest jump that I'd ever done. And what I will say is it's probably the coolest location, just what went into being involved in that, because we were there for a week. We did our first jump the day after we got there, and then we did the final jump the day that we left. But it's a camp. The company's called ALE, Antarctic Logistics and Exploration. It's one of the partners is Mike McDowell, and awesome Australian family. His son is out there, Tim's out there working with him, and it's a full-on camp. Like Alex Honnold had passed through shortly after we had left there. He was climbing Mount Vincent, which is the largest mountain in Antarctica. Crazy group of people. So fully set up, like library, indoor packing area for us to do our parachutes, bathrooms, showers, really nice tents. Will Smith was there earlier. That like people were passing. Yeah, if you're going to film, from my understanding, if you're going to do like a high-end film project, you basically work your way through that. It's fully established. There's a blue ice runway. We flew in on a 757.
What's a blue ice runway?
A runway made of like blue ice. The runway you land on is straight fucking ice. There's lights on it. It's crazy. And it's a chartered 757 through Icelandic Air. Yeah.
Holy shit, you just land on ice?
Straight up blue ice. It wasn't that like a deep dark blue. Yeah, that's the Russian. So if you look in front of that aircraft, that's what it is.
What the fuck?
So that's the Russian plane, which that actually landed while we were there. I got a killer GoPro shot. That's the camp, third row down. The little yep, that's it right there. And that's basically what it looked like when we were there too. They had.
Now is that camp set up for scientists? Like,
no. So there at the South Pole, there is a bunch of, from my understanding, like pure science going on there, funded by governments. This is straight up kind of tourism. I mean, you can go there and just hang out in camp. You can go see glaciers. Yeah, I mean, this is at one of the other. They have remote camps as well. They have like a crazy, like very high end camp. Like there's tents like that. Those are the tents we were staying in right there. That one that's hovering over there. Those are the kind of tents that we were staying in.
Whoa!
But it's on an ice field. There's no insects. There's no wildlife. The sun doesn't go down, and
how much food do they have up there?
As much as you could possibly want. They had a full like dining facility. The setup there is unbelievable. You can go in and get food anytime you want to. They're doing like they'll have a presentation every night. High end like National Geographic photographer. All sorts of crazy motherfuckers pass through there. Like I'm just going to walk to the South Pole, and they'll come back in subsequent years and give talks on, where they went and how they avoided these crevasses, which I had no fear of until I went to Antarctica and got the brief on crevasses, which is just, you're dead. They'll never find you again. And the camp is, of course, surrounded by them.
How deep are they?
Hundreds of feet deep, depending on the ones that you get into. It's just from the shifting and moving ice. And
sometimes people just fall into them?
I don't think... Oh, yeah, this is a guy who fell into one skiing. This is making its rounds on the old internet.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so you can't even see the body. He stops himself. This guy self-arrests.
Oh, fuck.
But who knows how much farther down that...
How did he get back out?
He might have self-rescued. Or he could have been...
Self-rescued is a terrible fucking phrase.
Yeah, but it's also actually pretty important to know how to do.
Yeah.
At all times, whatever it is that you are actually doing in your life.
Do those guys ski like that with an ice pick?
I don't think they ski with an ice pick, but I think... And I don't do this type of skiing, but the bottoms of their poles are sharp as well. So depending on what they need to climb out of, they might have crampons in their backpack. I'm assuming that the person had like a full backcountry kit with them.
God, now what do you do? Do you leave the skis behind? Do you drop them and try to save your ass, or do you try to come up with the skis? Because if you don't have the skis, you're kind of fucked.
Well, if they're smart, they're going to have a GPS communicator of some kind.
Yeah.
Like in the modern era, if you go out into the backcountry of any kind and don't have the ability to communicate, you're a fucking idiot. Like the barriers to entry is a couple $100, and you can talk to people. Maybe only text, but you could hit a button and legitimately people will come get you. I would say it depends on the situation that you're in. I think priority should be self-rescue if you can.
Yep. He was able to get out using ice cleats and a piece of rope from his friends.
So he was smartly not out there by himself, so they probably saw him go in.
Jesus. He could have been done.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if he hadn't self-arrested and had gone down hundreds of more feet.
Broken his legs.
Oh, yeah.
broken his neck, died like that.
See?
Instead, he lives another day.
Hard pass. I'm reasonable, Joe.
Gets right back on the skis.
So there's none of that going on in Antarctica, but we got this brief on, hey, we're getting ready to jump, and just so you know, like, here's the landing area, and everywhere else is crevasses. I'm like, oh, okay, so we should probably land in the landing area. But it was crazy. They had aircraft. They had.
And how do they know that a new crevasse isn't going to open up on the ice runway?
On the blue ice runway when they land the aircraft, I'm assuming they do surveys.
Oh, look, as they flattened it out.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, like that's legitimately
we do
it.
this every time, it says.
Yeah.
Every 22 hours?
Yeah.
Oh, it involves 22 hours of grooming. Oh, so
Every
they're just
plane
constantly
lands.
doing it.
Yeah.
And they shut the camp down every year. So I just had a dinner with Mike and his son Tim in Salt Lake a few weeks ago. And then they're getting ready to head back out there, I think, in January. And they'll stay out for the season. That's probably the aircraft that we jumped out of Twin Otter.
So why do they shut it down every year?
The winter is just super gnarly, and it's the dark season. So instead of the sun never really going down, the sun never really goes up. So it's shitty to have people out there.
Bruh.
So that's White Desert. That's a different place, but that's I believe that's on the other side of Antarctica. But similar concept.
The people that are there all the time, they must be weird.
I think it's a special kind of person that wants to make that their occupation.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, you think?
But the jump there was wild. I mean,
bet.
I was
It looks
wearing
incredible.
I had a duffel bag. I'm not joking you. The size of this fucking table. Because I had never jumped in Antarctica, so I'm Googling, like, what's your normal temperature? I had done that wingsuit jump up in Davis, where it was very cold at exit, but 100 degrees on the ground, because it was Northern California in the summertime. So I took this duffel bag, and I on our first jump, I put on just about everything in that bag, and I think I might have been the closest to a heat casualty that I've ever been in my fucking life.
Really?
Because we were in a Twin Otter, which is a normal skydiving plane, and they had the door open the whole time. They actually took the door off. But we were kind of up forward. There wasn't a lot of wind coming in. I'm talking like electronic gloves, several layers, profusely sweating underneath
Oh, no.
all the shit that I'm wearing.
Oh, that's horrible.
It was horrible because for those of you out there who don't know what happens to liquid when you jump out into a freezing environment, so you're sweating your ass off, jumping out into, it's probably in the negative 30s or 40s. Free fall, parachute, open up, and you're just like ripping off clothing in Antarctica. It was hilarious. We all overdressed for the first one, and I think most people were wearing 1 or 2 layers for the second jump that we did.
So when you got to the bottom, how cold is it?
10 degrees.
Oh, okay.
But sunny. Like I was wearing a pair of essentially snowboarding pants and a long sleeve t-shirt, not because I needed this is actually a video that I made of the camp.
So for underlayers, are you using synthetics or using merino? Like, what do you? Because it's very dangerous when you sweat like that and then get cold, right?
And that's the thing. Like underneath that jacket is a t-shirt, and I'm wearing the long sleeve because I didn't want exposure to the sun, and that's what, like wrapping your face too. Like the sun down there will absolutely nuke you.
Really?
Yeah, it's so. And this is probably like, I don't know. This could be fucking 3 a.m. The sun just never goes down.
Why is it so powerful up there?
I think it might be, I mean, I'm not an expert on this by any stretch, but I think it might be the angle that it's coming in at. But yeah, it's by the end, it was wild. And so we went from there to Chile to Miami, Miami to Barcelona, Barcelona to Cairo, Cairo to UAE, UAE to Australia, jumping each of the locations, 6.5 days.
Wow.
It's pretty gnarly, man.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Persistent extreme ultraviolet irradiance in Antarctica despite the ozone recovery onset. Oh, so it's an ozone issue.
Well, I believe that's what it was, but they've found that it's coming back, but it might just be so bright and so much like snow and ice to reflect off of. You're getting bombarded with mirrors around you.
It says attributable to the Montreal Protocol, the most successful environmental treaty ever, human-made ozone-depleting substances are declining and the stratospheric Antarctica ozone layer is recovering. However, the Antarctic ozone hole continues to occur every year, with the severity of ozone loss strongly modulated by meteorological conditions. In late November and in early December 2020, we measured at the northern tip of Antarctic Peninsula the highest ultraviolet irradiances recorded in Antarctic continent in more than 2 decades. Yeah.
They recommended all appendages covered, gloves at all times, and sunscreen on your face.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. What's hilarious, folks, I have to tell you this. I did a podcast earlier today, and he said, wow, it's your second for the day? He goes, impressive endurance. Do you know how fucking ridiculous that is for you to say? This is a guy who walked across Antarctica. How many days did it take you?
54 days.
By yourself.
By myself.
Trekking
yes, indeed.
across the fucking frozen tundra.
That was an endurance feat of its own. Yeah, just back.
Now, that's a real endurance feat. I'm just sitting down talking to people. Oh, my God, you talked already for 2 hours. How do you do it?
2 more hours. Here we go. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yep.
Dude, what the fuck were you doing?
Just getting back. Actually, still practically have the snow on my shoes. Yeah, I got back about a month ago. 54-day journey. First person in history to cross the entire continent solo, unsupported, so no resupplies throughout the thing. No aid, no wind, kites, nothing. Just me dragging a 375-pound sled across Antarctica.
I can't believe it only took you 54 days.
Yeah.
It's so big. Like, look at Antarctica on a map. Like, how long do you think it would take you to walk across America?
Well, we
Mountains.
usually look at Antarctica on a map. This is hilarious. I've showed people a picture of Antarctica. You're a smart guy, you probably know this, but usually people see it on a map projection because they think it's flat, right?
Right.
But it's actually circular.
Yeah.
So I went from the edge of the Ron Ice Shelf to the via the South Pole to the Ross Ice Shelf. So basically, kind of a diagonal across through the center and then back to the other ice shelf.
What do the flat earthers think about your traversing this area? Look, this is what you did. This is how you.
There
you
it
made
is. Exactly. Yeah.
So you went to the center of the fucking earth, basically.
There
you
it
went
is.
to the top of the pole.
Yep, bottom of the earth,
Wow.
standing down there, holding everyone up on my shoulders.
Wow. So you were at the South Pole, and then you trekked over to the ice shelf on the other side.
It's funny you say about the flat earthers, though, because all jokes aside, I've been getting a lot of trolling on my Instagram page from the flat earthers. I've got guys going like, I was doing this speech the other day. People are super nice, come up in the Q&A afterwards, want to shake my hand, take a picture, whatever. And this guy walks up with this real earnest look on his face, and he's like, so I really wanted to ask you, how was the hole? And I was like, excuse me? And he was like, the hole at the center. And I was like, give me a little more. He was like, like when you got to the edge. And I was like, oh man, like you're really asking me this question right now. Like we were talking about this. I didn't quite know where to go with it. I was like, yeah, there was actually, at least I didn't see the edge and the curvature kept going and I made it to the other side.
It is such a strange thing to believe, but people do.
And
people think people are trolling about that. And you know what? It actually started out. It's another 4chan thing, Did you know that? I'm sure there was probably somebody who believed it before that, but it started off people were trolling on 4chan, then eventually people just started actually going, hey, yeah, I bet it is flat. And then they started believing it, and YouTube videos popped up.
There's another YouTube video someone linked to me the other day, and I thought it had like a few hundred views, but it had 28,000 views, and it was all these guys debating, like, Colin proved that there's not a wall. Like, the wall, like there would be like Game of Thrones at the edge of the world. There's this whole conversation about
I bet
that.
There's another 28,000 people. It's proved that Colin never actually went, because we know he's a New World Order shill.
Well, the other funny one was that we got a bunch on the Instagram page. I'm out there alone, completely by myself, but I wanted to share the whole story through my Instagram to like share the journey with people, inspire others to do whatever they want to do. And I kept being like, well, I mean, he's not out there alone. He's taking pictures. I was like, the film crew. And it's like, guys, have you never heard of a tripod and a timer?
Have you never watched Survivor Man?
Exactly. So some funny comments along those lines.
So your sled was 300 and how many pounds?
375 pounds to start. So basically, food and fuel was the main weight. So I called my project The Impossible First. That's sort of what I named the project because several people had tried.
That's it right there?
Yeah,
oh my
there
God.
it is.
So not only are you walking, you're dragging this big ass heavy sled.
Yeah.
Fuck, dude.
People have tried this, going back 100 years to Ernest Shackleton saying if it was possible. And then the last few years, some really experienced polar explorers have given it a shot. And one guy actually died less than 100 miles from the finish line because of, lack of nutrition and some challenges with the weather and things like that. But people called it, people after that were like, it's impossible. And the reason people thought it was impossible was because you can't get resupplies, meaning if you fill your sled with food at a certain amount, you actually can't drag the sled anymore. So the whole math equation really was figuring out just how much food and fuel I could put in the sled. The fuel melts the water, so melts the ice into water essentially, and that equaled to 375 pounds. And to be truth, I could barely pull it on the first day. Like 1 hour into getting dropped off, I'm dropped off completely alone out there in Antarctica. I planned this project for a year, and I get dropped off, and after about 1 hour pulling 375-pound sled through the snow. It's minus 25 degrees out. I'm crying. I'm literally crying, and the tears in my goggles are starting to freeze. And I'm like, oh my God. So I pick up my satellite phone. I call home to my wife, Jenna, who also creates and plans all these projects with me. And I'm like, babe, I think we named the project the right thing, The Impossible Verse. Yep, it looks like it might be impossible to keep going. So I'm 1 hour into a 1,000-mile journey pulling a sled, told everyone I'm going to do this, and I'm already having those doubts pull up. But, fortunately, I was able to get a little bit further that day, and 54 days later, made it to the end. But,
how far did you get in the first day?
Well, it's funny because we just show the map. I actually, it starts on an ice shelf, which is basically the frozen sea ice, and there's an edge of that. That's where the continent starts. And so I have a waypoint on my GPS that marks that. So the plane that drops me off actually dropped me off on the ice shelf before the continent starts. And my first waypoint was kind of like the actual start. And so 1 hour in, I haven't even hit the real start. So when I call her on the phone, she's like, because she knows the route, and she's like, well, how far are you from the first waypoint, which is where the actual start is? And I'm like, it's 0.63 more miles. She's like, it's half a mile. You have 1,000 more to go. Like, get to the first waypoint,
Oh, jeez.
And I was like, okay. So I, rallied myself, got to the first waypoint, and then finally got in my tent that night and just kind of took a deep breath. I think I was just overwhelmed by the magnitude of it. I mean, imagine being a speck in the middle of Antarctica alone, these crazy temperatures, all the excitement but fears of the journey ahead, and 375 pounds on my back. When the sleds, when the snow's deep too, and loose snow, it makes 375 pounds even heavier than if it's like light, icy or consolidated. So yeah, it was a rough start, to say the least.
Did you do any sort of test run pulling the sled anywhere else?
Yeah, so the training element of it was pretty cool. So I actually set a few other world records previous to this in the mountains and things. We could talk about it if you want. But the last year, as I really committed to this project, I decided to start training specifically for this. I needed to put on about 20 pounds of muscle. I'm usually 6 foot, 165, pretty lean. I had raced triathlon professionally for a number of years and realized I needed to be a bit bigger because I was going to lose so much weight. And I found an amazing coach in Portland, Oregon, where I live, this guy named Mike McCassell. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but I know you've had David Goggins on your show.
Yeah.
I take it. So Mike actually surpassed David's pull-up record. Mike did 5,804 pull-ups in 20 hours. I think Goggins did about 4,000, which are both insane to me because I can do like
another 1,000.
And Mike was wearing a 30-pound weight vest too.
No!
Yes, just to add insult to injury. Mike McCassell, absolute legend. So anyways,
Wait a minute. He did 5,000 fucking chin-ups with a weight vest on? Dude, I barely can do 10.
I'm right there with you, man. Like pull-ups are not. I've got some other physical strengths, but the pull-up department is not my strong suit.
That is fucking insane.
Get this too, just because I gotta big up my man for a second. That's his fourth world record. He also pulled a F-250 truck 20 miles across Death Valley in a harness. So I'm trying to look for the best guy to teach me how to pull heavy shit.
Oh my God, you got the guy.
I found the guy. I was like, damn, this is the guy.
I just love that there's people like that out there that just make you feel like such a pussy. Oh my God.
The greatest thing about Mike, big, strong, jacked dude, but like super soft spoken. He's like, yeah, I did those pull-ups. It was cool. So anyways,
he basically fucked with that record so hard. He could die and come back to life and live a whole nother life, and no one's ever going to do it.
Yeah. So anyways, my training, he was the guy. I went to him, trained out of this gym in Portland, where he trains out of, and he got me bigger, he got me stronger, but he also did all sorts of badass, crazy stuff. I mean, this is a physical challenge, but it's more of a mental challenge than anything. So he had me, my hands in ice buckets doing planks to get my heart rate jacked up, and then he'd be like, get out of the water. Then I pull my hands out of the ice buckets, I'd be a seated squat against the wall, but then he would hand me Legos. And so my hands are frozen, my feet are in ice buckets now in a plank, my heart rate's, 190, and he's like, put this Lego set together. So the dexterity of my fingers, the mental acuity to pull this all together. There he is. Look at this guy.
What a fucking savage this guy is.
Yeah.
He did that for veteran suicides?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So he's got really, really important missions behind all of his projects. He calls them 12 labors, and over his life, he's trying to set 12 world records in various things.
Jesus Christ. There's people that are they're just designed different.
Yeah, yeah. So he's the man, but like this crazy training he came up with for me that was like the ice, the water, the mental acuity, all of this was like, he was like, yo, you're going to be in Antarctica. If your tent blows away when you're pulling it up, you're dead. Like the stakes are that high, 50, 60 mile per hour winds, like absolutely crazy. So
did you ever have an issue like that where you thought the tent could blow away?
I don't know if you have it. There's a clip on my Instagram I posted a few days ago of me setting up the tent in a minus 80 degrees out, 60 mile per hour winds. It's pretty gnarly, but yeah, I mean, there was one time when the tent almost did blow away from me. Yeah, there's this one. There's one other one. This is me getting in the tent looking like an absolute disaster when I get help with audio, but that's me. That's me.
Whoa, you're pulling ice out of your
I got caught out in a massive storm. And I just, so hard to get the tent up. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get it up or I was going to have to just keep walking.
Jesus.
I'm in the tent now. Hoping these tent poles hold. Man, that was really intense.
How do you stay warm in that tent?
So its average temperature is about minus 25, minus 30 in Antarctica. But like I said, when the wind jacks up, I don't know if there's that other clip of me setting up the tent, but if you get a chance to see that, it's can be about minus 80 outside, which it's hard to wrap your mind around that. But I've tried to put it in perspective by saying, I could take a cup of boiling water and throw it in an air and it immediately turns to ice. Like that's the temperature we're dealing with. Yeah, this is me trying to keep the tent poles together. Usually you'd have someone else to hold on to it, but I'm alone. I'm completely alone out there. So this is me struggling with my tent, just trying to keep it up. I've got it, tied down to my sled there, just battling the winds. And like I said, the stakes are high. If that blows away, I don't have a spare tent. I've got no extra weight in my sled to hold spare stuff. So it's do or die, quite literally, in a moment like that.
Did you have a patch kit?
I had a couple things prepared, a sewing kit, a patch kit, stuff like that. But if the tent itself or the tent poles, ripped apart, pretty much.
Fuck, dude.
Done.
And also, you have to set up your tripod and film this, and then press stop and go back inside. And how are you keeping these batteries juiced up?
This is the film crew, man, that was following me around. Right of the flat out film crew.
Yeah, they're near the ice wall.
It was basically I had to keep the batteries warm by keeping them right against my skin. So I'd keep the batteries right against my skin. My body weight would keep it warm. And the second I wanted to take it out, I'd pull it out real quick, hit play, and then it would, usually it'd last a minute or 30, enough to get a little clip or something like that. You couldn't just let it run, but then it would, completely freeze. Even a full battery would be, on zero battery by pretty quickly.
Were you using solar panels to charge it?
Yeah. So one crazy cool thing about Antarctica at that time of year is it's 24 hours of daylight. And so the sun never sets. So even when I'm in my tent in the middle of the night, eye mask, earplugs to kind of pretend like it's nighttime, but 24 hours of daylight. So solar panels, keeping everything charged, cameras, phone batteries, all that.
And are you traveling with, are you using GPS?
Yeah, so I had some waypoints, the GPS waypoints that kind of led my path to the South Pole, etc., but mostly actually using a compass. So I'd look at my GPS maybe once every week or something like that just
because
to get the bearing.
The juice factor? Or
it was actually just easier because I basically had like a harness on front of me that would have my GPS or my compass kind of off my chest, more or less, because some of the clips we saw, the sun's out, but actually more than half of the time the clouds would come in. So it would be just complete and utter whiteout. I couldn't even see one step in front of me. And so I'd actually have to just stare down at my compass, keep it on this bearing. And so imagine you can't see anything, can't see one step in front of you. I'm pulling a 300-pound sled 12, 13 hours per day, not listening to anything really, complete dead silence, and just staring at this compass bearing all day long. So,
damn, dude, were you going crazy at all?
I mean, the mental side of it was by far the most interesting side of it for me. Have a lifelong endurance athlete, but really kind of an exploration into the mind is what it was for me, and why I was curious about it. So spending all this time in silence. Are you familiar with Vipassana meditation?
Yes.
So I've done a couple of these 10-day silent meditation retreats before this, which is 10 days, no reading, no writing, no eye contact. Kind of dove into that piece of it, but 54 days alone in Antarctica in complete silence was next level of that for sure.
They were 400 miles in.
Whoa.
So this was part of the final experiment, which was this attempt to try and disprove flat Earth.
Oh.
He went as a part of that.
Did he bring flat earthers? Is that the deal?
So
Yeah.
4 flat earthers, 4 globe earthers get flown to Antarctica. It's $35,000 per person.
Oh,
And
my God.
This guy called Will Duffy put the project together, flew everybody down there.
Did he pay for each person?
Yep.
Wow.
So, I think maybe a couple of people chose to go self-funded, but they were trying to get the open offer to all of the biggest flat Earth influencers, commentators on the planet. I don't know what to call them.
How many went?
4 of each. So 4 roundies, 4 flatties. And
Don't you want to see their search histories?
maybe the FBI do. I don't know.
The flat people, I want to see.
So they do this in the middle of our winter, their summer. They observe the sun above the horizon for 24 hours. So there's no explanation, apparently, with most of the models of flat Earth about how the sun could stay above the horizon for 24 hours. So they flew down. They had drones flying in the air. They had 24-hour 360 cameras. They had live stream of iPhones, all of this stuff. And then they had the people that were on the ground. And the guys that were there observed the sun above
Did the
horizon.
flat earthers switch stances?
So 3...
3 did and 1 didn't?
This is just their drone footage. I was just showing you footage.
Oh, this is drone footage?
Yeah, so the final experiment,
So those are apparently mountaintops.
but they're submerged.
It's just all ice.
That is so fucking hardcore.
Because, there's a bunch of things up there that look like pyramids. And what it really is just an unusual peak of an enormous mountain. Have you seen the Antarctic pyramids? Yeah, you got to go all in on that.
Okay. Fucking...
There's
we have
people that believe
hard launched this episode.
people that believe wild shit about Antarctica. So you know about the direct energy weapon theory, right?
Yes, I did see
Yeah.
that on Sean Ryan's show.
Yes, I did as well. I was like,
That
okay.
guy's fucking really interesting.
Yeah, it's like he sounds really interesting, but if I want to sit him next to Eric Weinstein, you know what I'm saying? Like, is anything this guy's saying make any sense? Because I've done that before with Eric, with one guy who was a fraudster. I sent him a video and I said, "Tell me if this is gobbledygook or if this
You
is like
used
real physics."
Eric to stress test some
yeah.
guy's ideas.
Core, he loves it. He loves any sort of intellectual stimulation, and especially if it's like mathematics or physics or something where it's his wheelhouse. And he's great because someone can sound really good to me. They can start quoting thermodynamics,
Finessing you
and-
through whatever their problem is.
like chiropractors do. Chiropractors use all these crazy, weird terms for musculature and different insertion points. It's to let you know that they have a comprehensive understanding of the body that's far beyond yours, Chris. And this is the same thing like a lot of fraudsters do. They'll use enormous language and very verbose phrases, and it's like they're just trying to get you to think that they're smarter than they are.
Yeah, I think people use sort of complex language and fluency as a proxy for truthfulness and insight.
Yes. And especially if you're dealing with a truly brilliant person, they can't. That's what the
Holy
pyramids.
fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, this is just on Google Maps.
Yeah.
Jamie, you've just gone to Google Maps.
Yeah, I
to
didn't
find
want to
this.
go to any. I went to the source.
Any kooky websites, but it does look like a pyramid.
Well, it also looks like all 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's the.
But the reality is that's probably under a couple miles of ice.
Yeah, so this final experiment thing sent the world into a spiral. There was this dude, Jaron Campanella, who was one of the biggest influences, and he's said, I saw the sun above the horizon, I think the Earth's round. And he's immediately been, the Flat Earth Society's just gone into a head spin. They're saying they didn't really go to Antarctica. They went to the Sphere in Vegas, was one of the accusations. They did it at the Sphere in Vegas, and they were tracking it around.
The sphere's not that big, kids.
Yeah, well...
It's not that big.
I don't
I've been
know.
there. There's seats everywhere. You would know you're there.
I don't know. They had a bad time. But yeah, that's been pretty wild.
One of the things I find most striking is the presence of Antarctica on ancient maps, because we didn't discover it until 1820, and yet it's on maps drawn in the 1500s with great detail, which again were based on much older source maps that have now been lost to us. The astonishing thing is the so-called Pinkerton world map. I don't know if you can find it, Jamie. Drawn, I think, in 1813 or 1818, based on the latest exploration data at that time. And where Antarctica is, yeah, that one, keep going right, that one. That one you've got up at the top there. It just shows a hole where Antarctica is. Because it was an honest map. Nobody had found it by then. But if you go back to, for example, the Wolsey-Muller world map drawn in 1530 or thereabouts, you find Antarctica is present. If you can find Wolsey-Muller world map, it would be worth taking a look at. Orontius Phineus. Go for Orontius. Oronteus. Phineus. Finnaeus. The Orontius Phineus map. That map shows Antarctica exactly where it should be. And it shows it, there we go, right-hand side. There's Antarctica at the tip of South America, just south of South Africa.
And what did they call it back then?
Well, they call it the Southern Land. And it's larger than it is today, but it was larger than it is today during the Ice Age. Antarctica was a much bigger. Now, what the fuck is it doing on a map drawn in the 1500s, which we know was based on older source maps when nobody knew it existed in the 1500s? To me, the obvious answer is we are dealing with the fingerprints of a lost civilization that mapped the world and that left evidence of that mapping, which ancient map makers found and used and incorporated into their maps. These maps can be very confusing because they were trying to mix exploration data from their own period with data from the older maps. But when you look at these maps in depth, they're very, very intriguing.
Now, when you're looking down and it's an utter whiteout and you're looking at your compass and you're dragging this shit behind you, like, are you doing anything in your mind? Are you like singing songs? What are you doing?
There's a couple different things, but really what ended up happening is I started to be able to trigger these flow states. So, you know, as a lifelong professional athlete through different capacities in my life, you know, I've tapped into that. You know, I was a swimmer when I was a little kid, so swimming laps in a pool, sometimes I would like kind of just tap into this like timeless space where, you know, maybe 30 minutes would go by in 2 minutes or something like that. But I never really knew how I got there, just would sometimes tap into it, sometimes not, you know, the zone, flow state, whatever you want to call that. But in Antarctica, I went in with this sort of intention of exploring that space in my mind. And so as I got more and more into these whiteouts, into these staring at this expansive landscape, I started to find ways to actually trigger that flow state in my mind. And so it got to the point where I could, for several days at a time, be in this deep flow state. So, you know, my day was about 17 hours every day between getting up, boiling my water, getting out of my tent in those crazy conditions, packing my sled, dragging it for 13 hours, setting my tent back up in these storms. But I got into this sort of sequence of being so present with each step, each next sequence, that it ended up being in this really timeless, spaceless place in my mind of true high performance that was almost like the most deepest, peaceful, meditative state that I can possibly imagine. It was very profound and beautiful to get there in my mind.
Wow. Now, are you boiling this water in your tent? Like, how are you doing?
So
using
my
a
tent,
jet boil?
Yeah, so kind of a slightly different white gas fuel stove. So not the canisters where you could throw away, but like gas that you could refill the stove, but a stove with fuel. Basically, the way my tent was, you saw the outer layer of the tent there. There's actually an inner part that's a tent, so that there's a vestibule where basically there's snow inside the doorway, but not outside. So I would shovel that snow from inside of the tent vestibule into my pot and be able to melt the water that way. I drank about 6 liters of water every single day when I was out there.
Snow.
It's a lot of snow, and it takes a few hours to melt that. But people don't realize this. Antarctica is actually the largest desert in the world. So it's actually very dry. It doesn't snow very often, but when it does, it of course never melts. And the South Pole is at 9,300 feet. So not only am I in this desert, but I'm at altitude doing this thing.
Oh my God. Did you train at altitude? Did you use like one of those tents to sleep in, or?
Yeah, so this gym that Mike and I train out of is called Evolution Healthcare and Fitness in Portland. They actually have an altitude room there, so that it's not even a tent, but they actually have a full room where you can, you know, it's got rowing machines, it's got treadmills, it's got all that simulated up to about 14,000 feet.
How big is the room?
It's about 400 square feet, high ceiling.
Okay.
It's big. I mean, it's not like huge, but it's big
room.
enough. Yeah, it's like a proper room. I've been in some of those tents before when I was racing triathlon many years ago. A lot of people were starting to sleep in those tents, but a lot of people have a hard time in them. They get warm and stuff like that. I know a lot of fighters use them as well. But yeah, it was pretty cool to have a full room that you can actually, you know, being and moving properly to simulate some of the high intensity stuff. Yeah.
And so it would take you hours every day to make your water?
Yeah, I would say I was boiling water for about 3-4 hours per day. So about hour or two in the morning, hour or two in the evening. It takes a lot of energy to boil, frozen snow when it's that cold out. So I had to carry a lot of fuel. That was the other really heavy
that's what I was
component of
gonna
my
say.
sled.
That's like hundreds of hours of fuel, right?
Yeah. So I took about 17 liters of fuel. So that's what, 6 gallons or something like that.
Wow. How'd you know that was going to be enough?
I did some practicing beforehand. I in 2016 I did another world record project where I climbed the tallest mountain on each of the 7 continents, the 7 summits, as well as went to the North and South Pole, but much smaller polar expeditions, a week basically crossing the last degree of latitude. And so in those expeditions, I was on Everest during that time, Denali, etc., all of that in 139 days. But I did that, and that kind of helped me get a sense of it. But honestly, it was also best guess based on talking to people, different experts in the field, diving into that. But you never know. Is it going to be enough or too little? I erred on the side of too much.
When you finally got to the end, how much did you have left?
So my final push, I woke up on the morning of Christmas Eve, 24th of December this past year, and I was 77 miles from the finish. And I'd been going at that point. At the beginning of the trip, I was only going 9-10 miles per day. Towards the end, I started going about 20-25 miles per day. So I said, you know what? I'm about 3 days out. And then I thought to myself, maybe if I could push really hard these next 2 days, I could do it in 2 days, like 2 15-plus hour days, really get into it. And started looking at my fuel and food supplies, and they were pretty low. I had enough fuel, a few liters of fuel, but I actually only had about a day or two of food, real substantial food left. And so I woke up and I was like, all right, let's go for this. And in the actually deepest, talk about flow states, that was the deepest flow state of my life. I woke up in 1 hour in that day. It's Christmas morning now. I wake up and I'm just locked in. And I didn't tell anyone back home, didn't tell my wife who was tracking me. They had this GPS tracker where they could follow me, but I was just in my mind, I was like, you know what? Not 3 days, not 2 days. I'm going straight for it. And so I did a final 32-hour continuous push on day 54, 77 miles straight, dragging my sled all the way to get to the finish line in one continuous push. No music, no nothing, just in my head in this crazy flow state of I don't know, high performance. And it was a crazy final push to get there, but made it right before the food and fuel ran out.
Oh my God.
And then there's no one there, of course.
Right.
You cross the finish line, you're done this. No one in the world's ever done this. Applause. Nope. Audience of 0.
And so what do you do when you get to the end? You said, hey, I'm done. Come get me?
Yeah.
And how long does it take for them to come get you?
It took me a week to get out of Antarctica totally. It took actually me 4 days to get out of there. But there's a crazy other component to this, which is no one in the world had ever done this before. And like I said, a few really talented people, some of the best explorers in the world had tried recently. One guy died. And it just so happened there's a really specific season when you can attempt this, but another guy was attempting this at the exact same time as me. A British guy who's equivalent of a Navy SEAL, British Special Forces. The living most experienced guy in Antarctica has actually pulled 3,000 plus miles in Antarctica now on various expeditions. And so we got dropped off 1 mile away from each other to begin this thing. And obviously I was the first. I did win this race head to head. And at the finish line, I waited for him for a few days because I wanted to congratulate him because he did ultimately finish. But you can only imagine, going back to that first hour where I was like, it's impossible. It was also it's impossible. And by the way, this Navy SEAL dude who knows more about Antarctica than me, he's off and going. I can see him in the distance, just leaving me in the dust. But fortunately, after day 6, I caught up to him. I waved to him in this weird, passing of the torch moment. I was passing him, and then I never saw him again until I finished. And I finished about 70 miles ahead of him, about 2.5 days ahead of him.
That's gotta suck for him. Imagine he's I got this motherfucker.
I brought it home for America, man.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We all appreciate that. But still, that's gotta suck for him.
Yeah. So I actually, even though I finished, and the first thing I could have kind of wanted to do, I haven't had a shower.
Right.
I actually, to save weight so I could get as much food and fuel in my sled, I brought no extra clothes, no extra pair of underwear, literally no extra pair of underwear, no extra pair of nothing. So
where are you shitting out there?
Everyone wants to know this, so let's just get it on the table. Thank you for asking. Basically, I described that vestibule situation. So one side I cook in.
Right.
If the wind is calm, I get out of my tent, dig a hole, and go shit in a hole basically.
Right.
But when it's real windy, like those storms I just watched, like you're gonna get frostbite if you try to bend over and pull your pants down when it's minus 80 out.
Right.
So in the vestibule of my tent, not the side I'm cooking on, but the other side where I'm still inside covered, I dig a hole in there. And that was my morning routine. Get up at 6 a.m., start boiling my water on one side of my tent, and it's not glamorous. It's not a pretty thing. And to make actually, to me, this is very cool, but also not glamorous. Within 1 degree of latitude of the South Pole, so the last degree of latitude, 89 degrees, the South Pole is at 90 degrees. It's basically 69 miles or 60 nautical miles circumference around the South Pole. Antarctica being as pristine as it is, they have all these laws about environmental conservation, which to me is amazing, being someone who just loves and is a great steward of the land. They actually say you can't even leave your human waste in holes here. Even though there's nobody out there, they're like, we want this to be completely protected area. And so, yes, usually my sled was getting lighter most of the time because I was eating food every day and burning fuel. But in that last degree of latitude to the South Pole and crossing it, I was shitting in a bag, wrapping it up and putting it in my sled and having to carry it with me. So, yeah.
Wow. That shows discipline.
Shows something.
A lot of people have been like, yeah, put it in a bag. Fuck you. Crazy assholes. No one's up there. Who cares if I take a shit up there?
It was tempting, but so I grew up in the going out in the outdoors and just this leave no trace principle that I really love, and particularly Antarctica. One of the things about Antarctica, it's one of those places where, imagine you've traveled far and wide in your life, and there's a few places, at least in my mind, where you can't put it into words until you've stepped off there. And for me, this was my second time in Antarctica. Both times, this big cargo ship basically lands you on the continent, and then you get in a smaller plane to get dropped off to where I needed to start on the edge of the continent. But both times stepping off the plane, I'm just shit-eating grin ear to ear on my face because I just am like, whoa, what is this place? Even the second time seeing it, I felt the way, like my cheeks were sore because I was just smiling so big of just the pristine beauty, the blank canvas. You look out on the land and you're like, human footprints haven't touched 98% of the continent, something like that. It's untouched. And so shitting in a bag, if I had to do that to do my part to keep it that way,
How many bags of shit did you drag?
At the end, it was about I reused the bag. So one per day for that section is about 120 miles. It took me, I don't know, a week or so to cover that distance. So added weight to my sled rather than subtracting that was the middle part of the journey, right around the 30th and 40th day.
Egypt was crazy because Egypt is like Greece in that you have you can go to the Pantheon and you see that kind of stuff, right? But you go to Egypt and there's 4,000-year-old paint on the walls. And you're like, what? I can't get paint to stay on my wall for 10 years. And it's almost exclusively because of the climate, and it got buried in sand. But it's so wild. So wild.
When you say that 1% of ancient Egypt has been discovered, what do you really mean by that?
Of the percentage of what we know that happened in Egyptian history, 1% has been excavated in terms of what we can actually pull out of the ground and look at artifacts. So there's whole eras of pharaohs that we don't know where they're buried. Even when Tutankhamun was discovered, he was kind of a footnote in the pharaohs that we knew about at that time. And we didn't know he was, as extravagant, as rich as, until we discovered his actual tomb. Mm-hmm. A lot of people at that time didn't even think he was worth looking into, because we have these lists of pharaohs, and the thing with the pharaohs is that the next pharaoh is always trying to prove that he's the better one. And this is why you go to Egypt and you find statues of Ramses everywhere. And part of it was because Ramses, I think it was Ramses II, he commissioned so many statues of himself. Because he's like, oh, I'm the best. I'm the greatest. And what they couldn't keep up with the commissioning, and they started actually rubbing off the names of previous pharaohs on statues and just putting Ramses on it.
Really?
Because he was just, so you go from the top of Egypt to the bottom of Egypt, and you're going to find statues of Ramses.
He wanted to leave his mark.
And he did, right? It worked.
We're talking about it now in 2024.
I know.
Yeah, that is nuts. So when you go there and you're in the presence of these things and you try to put yourself back into that time period, have you ever tried to think, what was the motivation to make something as great as the Pyramid of Giza, the Great Pyramid?
people definitely want to make their mark, right?
Right, but that's a mark that just doesn't even make sense.
There's something to that. I mean, if you think you're a god,
Right.
and you have this whole kind of worldview perspective of and theology that you need to make something that and bear yourself with all this crap because that's going to make a difference in your afterlife, then you're going to go big rather than going home, right? So the perceptions of people in the ancient world are just so different. We got it so good right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like longevity, health, food is just on a completely different scale. And so the conventions of needing to make sure that, especially if you're like the richest guy around, that you tick off all the boxes because you're going to die, and you're probably going to die sooner than you want to, sooner rather than later. And you have this whole perception of, well, if I bury myself with all this stuff and maybe even some of the people, we're just going to kill them and include them too, because they're going to help me out. That's going to help me out in the afterlife.
You need slaves in the afterlife if you're a pharaoh.
Yeah, of course you do.
You can't just
Why
go
not,
by yourself.
right? Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So Khufu's pyramid, what's the timeline that he was even in power?
I don't know. I'm not an Egyptologist or an archaeologist necessarily, but he was. I think that was like 4,000 years ago. We only really have a tiny little statue of him.
That's
we don't
nuts.
actually have that much about him.
I guess he was busy making a pyramid.
So they say, right?
So they say.
Billy thinks different, but
Well, a lot of people think different. That's what's interesting about it is the archaeological argument that like Dr. Robert Schoch makes about the water erosion in the Temple of the Sphinx.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating argument because it does appear like that's water erosion. And that would put the timeline way, way back.
yeah, I think even just looking at the Sphinx, you can tell that no matter what your perspective is, you should entertain the idea, at minimum, that the head was built later.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it doesn't fit the body.
It has much less erosion. But you could also attribute that to the different densities of the stone. Like that's one of the things about these layers of limestone. It's like some of them are much more porous and some they erode easier.
Yeah.
You do see that.
Yeah.
And I think they're doing a terrible disservice by covering the Sphinx with like new stones and they redid the paws and they're doing all that. Like, my God, people, like leave it alone. Like leave it the way it is.
Yeah, it's this tricky balance between
Restoration and recreation.
yeah.
Because they're in a recreation stage.
Yeah.
And it was obviously they're doing it with smaller stones and it like looks different. It's not the same thing. It's not
Yeah.
what it initially was. It was carved from one piece of stone.
Have you seen some of the restoration stuff that Saddam Hussein did in Iraq?
No.
Jamie, you got to pull up the ziggurat at Ur.
Oh no.
So Saddam Hussein was a bit of a nut job, but he believed, as far as I understand it, that he was the recreation of Nebuchadnezzar.
Oh, boy.
So he did all of this restorative work in Iraq on things like the walls of Babylon. And in Ur, he rebuilt the ziggurat. Whoa. So if you look at that picture over there that says 1932 and 2022, that's what he did. Is he basically tried to rebuild this entire thing.
Wow.
And it's amazing. I am trying hard to get to Iraq because I wanna see this thing. Interestingly
Don't
enough,
die.
yeah.
Don't die, dude. Don't go over there.
So that's actually Ur.
So I'm sorry, but so this is the modern version with the small bricks. The original version, was it all carved from one piece?
No, it would have been clay bricks.
So these were clay bricks. So what do we? Jamie? Can you go back to the 1930 image, please, so we could see what it looked like? God, I would rather just have that. I mean, I want to see what it looked like and what it looks like all these years later. I don't want to see a recreation, which is very similar to what they've done to the Sphinx.
Yeah, the Sphinx. Even when I was in Egypt, they were doing some work in like.
Can you, Jamie? Can you go to the rehabilitation of the Sphinx or whatever they would call it?
I just clicked on like the ruins of it. I was going to
Yeah.
go back to the 30s or 40s or something.
Well, the restoration part is the interesting part. Like you could see the restoration. If you go to just Google restoration of the Sphinx paws.
Well, they're talking about putting encasing stones on the pyramid.
Yeah, I've heard that too. God, don't do that.
I don't think they should do that either.
No, you shouldn't do anything. I mean, obviously they took the original casing stones off, but that's also history. So
Yeah.
now you can see like the new pause. Well, that seems like the difference between buried and unburied.
Yeah.
So like even when Napoleon came upon, like right there, like isn't that restored?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there was much more erosion then. When Napoleon came upon it, it was buried, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
I
so,
think that was the case.
Like over time, because you're dealing with these crazy sandstorms, over time everything gets kind of buried.
Oh, so much of it is under sand for so long.
Now, I know that Jimmy has
see.
looked at
Corsetti,
that.
yeah.
And I don't know Jimmy personally. I like the guy without knowing him. You interviewed him,
Yeah,
right?
very nice guy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to get him out in the field with me and show him some stuff firsthand. I think
I bet he would love that.
I
Yeah,
think he
he's a
would.
giant fan of your work.
I like to hear that. Well, I'm a fan of his work, but I don't happen to agree on this one.
Well, I mean, I don't even know if he agrees. I think he's just speculating.
Yeah.
He's not dogmatic. Like, he doesn't have, like, a
Right.
rigid perspective on this.
Yeah, here you can see there's the recat structure. What is interesting, though, is look at this. You've got this structure up here, the tenoma. I forget how you pronounce
say that?
I knew how to pronounce it, but anyways, that's an impact crater there. There's one here. We can actually, if we go back, the Tenumur crater in Mauritania, that's impact, and the Temimichat.
That's it.
So what's interesting, though, check this out. There's one, there's two, and here's the recat structure. They fall in a perfect alignment. Now, what's the explanation there? I don't know.
Could just be coincidence, right?
Could be coincidence, yeah. It could be coincidence.
One of the things that he said about the recut structure was that around it, the white appears to be salt.
Which could be. And I mean, see, the rim rock of this is late Cretaceous, about 90 million years old. So at that point, it was below the ocean, right? So it's been uplifted. I think this thing is about 1,400 or 1,500 feet above sea level, if memory serves me correct. So it's been eroded. You see, this whole thing here is like an erosion. You had a massive amount of water that came down over this, and most likely is what exposed this thing to the surface. It was probably buried. Let's see here. So right there is, from Plato, that's the ringed city of Atlantis to
Right.
scale.
The concentric rings.
The concentric ring. So this is the actual scale superimposed onto the recat structure.
so it's much smaller
Much
in
smaller.
scale.
Yeah.
But Plato's scale was based on what?
the stade. It was based on the stade, which is roughly 607 feet. It's where we get the word stadium from.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because that was the length of a stadium in ancient Greece.
So when you look at Plato's version of this, sorry to take you on this detour, but I was just curious. When you look at Plato's version of Atlantis, is there an area of the world that seems likely? Yeah?
Yeah. You better watch my 6-hour presentation, Joe.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, no, but I look, it's detailed. That's why even in 6 hours, I can't really spell it. In the podcast I did, the first 9 episodes, 2 hours each, were devoted to, I thought, well, let's kick it off with Atlantis.
18 hours of Atlantis.
18 hours of it. The last episode 9 was devoted to the recat structure.
Wow.
So I had eight hours, so 16 hours, but we had some chatter and things like that in there, so maybe more like 12 or 14 hours. So you know who Johanna James is?
No.
She is a British actress who started doing this She's a really cool lady. She's very interested in all this kind of stuff. Very smart, extraordinarily beautiful. And she went on and did she does these like 20-minute, 30-minute little vignettes of things that she's really interested in, having to do a lot with, ancient cultures, all the kind of things that, Graham Hancock is, she reads Graham Hancock. She became a fan of mine, and she devoted one of her little 20 or 30-minute segments to, she said, I watched all 10 hours or 12 hours of Randall Carlson's programs on Atlantis. And so she did this like 30-minute little synopsis of it. Really did a great job. So we reached out to her. I invited her on. She came on. We did a live stream a couple of weeks ago with her as a guest. And just really fun lady. She's also does comedy.
Really?
Yeah. And she's very intelligent, very gorgeous. What can I say? You know, and smart and interested in all this kind of stuff. So, you know, there we go. Anyways, so she was very interested in the whole Atlantis thing. And so because of that, there was a lot of feedback and people wanting to know more. And so I thought, okay, now the 10 or 12 hours I did, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to condense that down. So a couple of weeks ago, we did the first 3-hour live stream where I basically started breaking down Plato's account line by line. What did he actually say? Let's look at the geology. Let's look at the geography, the oceanography, the astronomy, and see if it lines up, if it matches up. And so I think there's one place that pretty much is not all the details, but when you look at all of the areas around the planet that have been proposed for Atlantis, I think there's one place that fits the majority of his details, and that's the sunken Azores Plateau. And I say sunken because we know it's sunken, and it's right along the mid-Atlantic ridge. In fact, since we're on this subject, and I wasn't even thinking we'd get on this subject, there's the Azores Plateau right there. It straddles a triple plate junction, which you have the European plate, the African plate, and the North American plate here.
Wow, it's up near Nova Scotia?
Yeah, it's far north. It is. But notice over here, it's really almost at the same latitude as Spain. See? And I would say that if there's any place on the planet that is most consistent with Plato's account, that's it right there.
And why is that? Without doing an 18-hour presentation.
Oh, come on, Joe. Can't we have pizza brought in?
We can.
Nah, that's why, in a nutshell, God, where do I even begin? So, I was afraid you were going to ask that, but we can look very quickly, I guess, like give you the 5-minute version, which is that there is evidence that there was a massive subsidence along the mid-Atlantic ridge. We actually talked about this a little bit, and I think in our very first discussion we had, which was what, 7, 8 years ago?
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about this a little bit. Geophysics shows that there's horizontal movement, lateral movement of the Earth's crust because of continental drift, but there's also vertical movement. And that is the result of isostatic compensation. That's called isostasy is the vertical movement of the Earth's crust. I can show you, I should have a slide right here that will help to really illustrate what it is. Let me back up to, let's see. Should be right in here. Here we go. Okay, so now this is the shore of Hudson Bay. Now this is where the ice sheet was the thickest, right? Now what are you seeing there? Hudson Bay is up here. These are shorelines because when the ice was removed, the land started rising back. So here's sea level, land is rising back.
And the land is rising because of a lack of weight of the ice?
Yes, right. So you're sitting on a soft, cushiony chair right now, right? Are you?
Yep.
Okay, so your ass is causing isostatic depression of that cushion on your chair.
Right. When I lift
And if you sit up,
yeah,
you'll have isostatic compensation. Right?
So that's what that is along many, many, many lines.
Yes, those are all shorelines.
Wow.
Here's another view of it.
Wow.
Here's another view.
Wow.
That's the land rebounding a couple of thousand feet after the ice was removed. Now, the ice was removed, and all of those trillions of tons of weight, where did it go? In the Atlantic Ocean. Now, you look, the thinnest crust on the Earth is the mid-Atlantic ridge. And if you look at it, you'll see that there are transform faults, which should show up right here. The transform faults are these vertical fault lines that are what you would say orthogonal or at right angles to the ridge itself. Here you can see very clearly the triple plate junction, and how the Azores Plateau. Okay, well, since the 1940s, the first expedition in 1948, there was when they started doing dredge samples from the floor of the Atlantic Ocean, which coincidentally, the name of the ship was the Atlantis. They dredge core samples, and they pull up the core samples from 2 miles down, a mile to 2 miles down, and they look at those core samples, and what you had was, for example, shallow water creatures living. They weren't living. They were now, they had been drowned. You had creatures like that typically lived under 100 feet of seawater, and now they're a mile and a half below, and they're on the flanks of this place right here.
So these are fossils that they're finding?
Yes.
And they're finding fossils that ordinarily you would find in some place that was very shallow.
Very shallow. Very shallow, yes.
Or relatively shallow, 100 feet.
100 feet, yes. So this is the basic idea here. This goes back to the 60s. As it says right here, the possible tectonic implications of glacial-eustatic. Now, eustatic is the rise and fall of sea level correlated with the increase and decrease of glacial ice. So if the ice is increasing, sea level is falling, and we call that eustatic sea level fall. If the ice is shrinking, melting, sea level's rising. So that's a eustatic rise. So that's the meaning of that. When you see glacial-eustatic, that means the rise and fall of the sea level as a result of glacier growth or melting. Okay? And it says here, sea level fluctuations have received only minor attention in connection with such problems as ocean floor spreading. The purpose of this report is to point out that late Pleistocene sea level data suggests that the ocean basins have responded isostatically and by a significant amount, particularly concentrated along the mid-Atlantic ridge. I've got so much here. I'm just going to grab a couple of these things here. Yeah. So they dug up these cobbles, which are the cobbles are. So a cobble is basically a stone or anything that's lithified that's roughly between a pebble, and a boulder. A boulder, when you get, I think, to 11 inches, about the size of a volleyball, now you're in the realm of boulders. A cobble is in between pebbles and boulders, like you've heard of cobblestone streets, they're fist-sized rocks, basically. So they say here, the Atlantis cruiser and Great Meteor seamounts rise from a broad ridge or plateau, which extends from the mid-Atlantic ridge, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. So about a ton of flat pteropod limestone cobbles was dredged from the summit area of one of these sunken what they're calling the seamounts. And a seamount is like a flat-topped mountain, right? Like the top of the mountain has been sheared off, okay? So they pulled up these limestones, right? These limestone cobbles. They dated them. One of the cobbles gave an apparent radiocarbon age of 12,000 years, plus or minus 900 years. The state of lithification, how much it is turned into rock, of the limestone suggests that it may have been lithified under subaerial conditions. In other words, in the atmosphere. That's what that means. It may have been lithified under subaerial conditions, and the seamount may have been an island within the past 12,000 years. Wow. So, we could go through, again, hours of this kind of research, and why it's been pushed off to the side is anybody's guess. But it just doesn't fit the paradigm. But, yeah, basically, now this doesn't prove that there was any civilization there, but we can make a very strong case that a large section of the Azores Plateau was above sea level during the late glacial maximum.
Does it coincide with Plato's account of trade and of travel and of the way...
Well, we have no way of knowing. See, now there we have to make a leap of faith, which is this. If we look right here, you'll see... you can see it very clearly, and you can see the Straits of Gibraltar here, which was anciently known as the Pillars of Heracles. And you come here to a group of islands, and then you get to the Azores Plateau. And here, these down here are those seamounts, those truncated seamounts. So really, all you have to do, here's the leap of faith you have to make. You have to go, now I don't get into anything like, whatever, flying spaceships or crystal ray guns or anything like that. No, I just go by what Plato says. What he's describing is a maritime culture that had navigational abilities. Something along the lines of the Minoan or the Phoenician culture, maybe by an order of magnitude, right? So now all we have to do really is assume this, which to me is not so pseudo-scientific that we couldn't even consider it, which is that somebody, some group in the Ice Age had enough navigational skills to sail from Europe to islands right here.